The sixth of the last 7 words, it is finished. What does Jesus refer to when he said, it is finished or it is consummated? It is not a statement of concession or surrender, as in a game over, or like in the end of a movie, the words flashing the end. Neither is Jesus giving up, saying, I can't take it anymore. Rather, these words are a deliberate announcement by Jesus of a great accomplishment, a completion of something that has reached its intended destination or outcome, the consummation or completion of a larger plan, a divine plan, a great work that is now achieved. We can look at this from several perspectives. St. Augustine, in his commentary on this passage, refers the word to the fulfillment of all the prophecies that had reference to Jesus. It is consummated means our Lord wished to show that everything which had been foretold by the prophets concerning his life and death had been fulfilled. Starting from his conception and birth, example, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, his nativity at Bethlehem, his miracles, the entry into Jerusalem on a donkey, and the passion, all had been foretold by David, Isaiah, Jeremiah, etc. Secondly, the hour of Jesus' glorification had been accomplished. Jesus first spoke of this hour to Mary in John chapter 2 when he said, my hour has not yet come. Jesus mentioned the hour in the temple to the chief priests. He said, this is your hour and the power of darkness. But his hour finally arrives after Jesus enters Jerusalem riding on a donkey a few days before he dies. Jesus announces, the hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. At the moment of his hour, he says he will do two things: draw all men to himself and defeat the ruler of this world, the devil, who will be cast down. When Jesus says it is finished, this hour of his glory is now complete. The third is the institution of the new covenant. The only place the word new covenant is used in the Gospels is at the Last Supper, when Jesus said those words that we hear at the time of consecration at Mass. This sacrificial language, this is my body given up for you. This is my blood of the new covenant, new and eternal covenant, which is poured out for you. It is reminiscent of the word spoken by Moses when he sprinkled the blood of the animal, saying, behold the blood of the covenant. By these words, Jesus was instituting the new Passover, the new covenant, which would replace the old covenant. But he was not referring to a sacrifice of a Passover lamb. He was referring to himself as the sacrifice. And the words that he mysteriously anticipated in the upper room was being accomplished at this point with his death on the cross. It is finished. It is consummated. The new Passover sacrifice, the new and everlasting covenant by the sacrifice of my body and blood is now complete. Jesus died so we would live. He bore the punishment that was ours. By his wounds we are healed. He paid the price of our sins, a very steep price. The price was his own life. And what are we doing about it? I would like to share the story from a movie. It's of a father who takes his 8-year-old son to work with him at the railroad drawbridge, where he's the bridge tender. At the bridge, the father goes into the engine room and tells his son to stay at the edge of a nearby lake. A ship comes and the bridge is lifted for the ship to pass through. Now, though it is supposed to arrive an hour later, the train happens to arrive. The son sees this and tries to warn his father, who is currently not paying attention and is unaware of the oncoming train. Just as the train approaches, the boy rushes out to throw the switch manually, but falls into the drawbridge gearworks, leaving the father with a horrific choice. Should he save his son and let the train wreck, or lower the bridge and save the train and sacrifice his son to the crushing wheels? The father is torn, he's tormented by this decision. He finally decides to lower the bridge, the gears crushing the boy. The movie shows the people in the train who are completely oblivious to the fact that a boy died trying to save them. Some were laughing. There was one lady who was actually doing drugs. And they showed the father in his anguish, watching as the people in the train were unaware and unappreciative of his choice to sacrifice his son's life so they could live. Romans 5:8 says, God showed his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Do we allow that sacrifice to be wasted? How do we cooperate with Jesus' sacrifice and death? The answer is through the Mass. How is that? Here are some quotes from the Catechism of the Catholic Church. The Eucharist is the memorial of Christ's Passover, the making present and the sacramental offering of his unique sacrifice. The Eucharist is a sacrifice because it represents, not represents, but represents and makes present the sacrifice of the cross. Christ's sacrifice present on the altar makes it possible for all generations of Christians to be united with his offering. If someone offered you an opportunity to use a time machine and go back in time, where would you choose to go? People come up with various interesting events in history. But how about going back 2,000 years to the time of Christ and standing with Mary at the foot of the cross? At Mass, we literally get to be with Jesus, witnessing and participating in his sacrifice at Calvary. How beautiful is that? The Mass is the source, center, and summit of our Catholic faith. At Mass, we get to unite our weaknesses, sins, and failures to Jesus in his sacrifice at Calvary. We not only get to see Jesus, body, blood, soul, and divinity, but we get to participate in the new Passover sacrifice and eat the lamb, as Jesus commanded us in John chapter 6, when he said, "Eat my flesh and drink my blood." How can we apply this in our lives? We need to find a new appreciation for the Mass. We owe it to ourselves to understand the Mass, what is happening, how we can participate more fully. From my personal experience, once I learned about what happens at Mass, it just opened my eyes and made the Mass come alive for me. So learn about the Mass, understand what happens, and participate in the Mass as often as you can.